Choosing Family by ginnyrules27, Chapter 8. It turns out Hades didn't have too much longer to wait as the day wore on. The ebb and flow of customers was a pretty steady stream until about an hour before Hades, quote-unquote, closed for the day. He never officially closed up shop, and most knew that there were prepared dishes in the kitchen that people could take from if needed. Where those dishes were kept, though, was a secret only select few knew. Hades obviously was one of them, considering he ran the place. Panic was another, and Hook was the last person who knew. Hades wasn't exactly thrilled to share that information with the pirate, but in exchange for that and letting him and his allies eat for free, Hades got his orders from Hook's shop free of charge. The front door clanged open and Hades didn't bother to look up. He knew, despite there only being one option, most villains still took their sweet time ordering their food. Hades didn't mind, he just charged them extra for that. There was never a price on the board, so no one ever tried to fight him on it. They all knew the motto of the Isle: life ain't fair. Hades just happened to like teaching it to the adults who hadn't learned it yet. What's Bacalerios? Mal's voice rang out, sounding out the word slowly as if it was foreign to her. Considering its Greek background, it probably was. Hades' heart clenched as he took a deep breath before looking out of the window that allowed him to see out of the front of the house, from the kitchen. Frowning when he didn't see anyone, Hades made his way from the kitchen to the front counter. Looking down, he had to hold back a chuckle as he saw Mal. No wonder he hadn't seen her. She was so short that the counter had completely hidden her from view. "It's a fish dish," he said, leaning on his forearms as he rested on the counter, looking at her. "Basically just fried fish." Mal rolled her eyes. "If I wanted fried fish, I'd have gone to Ursula's chip shop. That's all she ever has." "Well, that's the option for the week. Take it or leave it," Hades told her, holding back an offer to invite her to eat back in his home. "Maleficent never told her about you. That's clear as day. Take it slow, otherwise you're going to risk chasing her off," Hades thought as Mal bit her lip softly, clearly thinking about it. "Fine," Mal scoffed. "I'll take some to go." "Fair enough," Hades nodded, walking back into the kitchen. Most villains took their order to go, since the front of the house was too small to feasibly fit more than 15 tables. That didn't mean Hades didn't feel his heart sink when he heard Mal say that, though. He didn't know what was crueler, the years of only seeing Mal through the amber, or getting these brief glimpses of her before she ran off again. Quickly getting to work, Hades mentally did an inventory of what was remaining in his pantry. He had enough fish to make it through a busy week, or at least he had enough that an extra piece of fish wouldn't go missing. Making up his mind, he battered and fried 3 pieces of fish, letting the batter get a nice golden brown before pulling them out of the fryer. Blotting the fish so that they weren't too oily and potentially lead to the bag breaking, Hades wrapped them up and stuck them into a paper bag. For the first time since he opened the doors to the restaurant, Hades wished the dish took longer to make just so he could spend more time with Mal. "That was quick," Mal said as Hades walked back into the counter. "Yeah, well, it doesn't take too long to fry 3 pieces of fish," Hades told her. Mal looked over at the sign that listed the dish for the week. "Sign says 2 pieces, she said with a suspicious edge to her voice that seemed out of place on a 5-year-old. "Sign's wrong," Hades told her. "Then change it." Hades couldn't help but chuckle at the demand. He knew that if it was anyone else, they'd have found themselves tossed out onto the street, and have their meals shoved somewhere the sun didn't shine. But to have it come from a 5-year-old, Hades' 5-year-old, there was something endearing about it. "I'll get right on that," he told her with a smirk, and Mal seemed to stand up a bit straighter, as if proud she had successfully given a command. "How much?" "Pardon?" Hades asked, as he paused to turn back to the kitchen to clean up. "How much for the food?" Mal elaborated, rolling her eyes and clearly annoyed that she had to repeat herself. Hades turned and faced her again. "Can't you read?" he asked, pointing to the fine print at the bottom of the Order of the Week sign, quite aware of the fact that he had asked the question to a 5-year-old. Persephone had insisted that the children of the Isle be able to get their food whenever they needed it, and money was the one resource they never had a lot of. The adults paid, or they worked out a deal with Hades if they didn't have the money on them. The kids, though, never asked for this life. They never did anything to earn being locked on the Isle. Regardless of policy, I wasn't going to charge Mal anyway, Hades thought as Mal looked at the sign. It's not like I'd lose any money, giving away a free meal. Besides, no one's here, so it's not like anyone would be able to accuse me of being weak or accusing Mal of taking charity. Mal looked back at Hades, eyeing the bag of food as if it housed a bomb and not 3 pieces of fried fish. What's the catch? Cod, if Hook is to be trusted. Mal rolled her eyes at what Hades thought to be a pretty good joke. Everything's got a catch, she said, and Hades sighed as he heard the distrust in her voice. Mal was only 5. She shouldn't have been so suspicious of the world. What had Maleficent done? Well, now you can say that's not true, Hades said, leaning on the counter once more and holding the bag at a height that was low enough for Mal to reach out, but high enough as to avoid her getting insulted. Ask around. That's been the policy since this place was started. Mal seemed a little hesitant, but grabbed the bag from Hades and walked out, not saying another word. Hades shook his head and went back to the kitchen to clean up. He couldn't help but feel like he was floating on cloud 9. He had actually had a conversation with Mal. Granted, he didn't know if he could classify it as much of a conversation, but after 5 years of only seeing her through the ember, Hades would take what he could get. You should have just taken her to the underworld, he thought as he started to clean up from the day's service. Oh yes, the same underworld where Maleficent's minions had snatched her before. It would be a private enough area where you could have told her who you are. She deserves to know. Hades shook his head as he continued to clean up the kitchen. While Mal definitely deserved to know, it was too soon. Besides, Hades didn't want to risk Maleficent hurting Mal because of it, or preventing Mal from seeing him again. Wiping out the counter and tossing the rag into the sink, Hades couldn't help but smile. He had thought that the restaurant was a waste of time, something that Persephone was doing to take her mind off of Mal. He was only hoping to ensure it stayed up, and that no one messed with it that when Persephone was off the isle. Now though, he wouldn't hear a negative thing about this place. Closing the front door and flipping the sign from open to closed, even though he knew full well anyone who wanted to go in would simply ignore the sign, Hades couldn't help but give a little whistle as he strolled back to the underworld. His obvious good mood seemed to scare the underlings more than his negative moods, as the streets were completely barren. Stuff? He called out as he stepped into his lair. He was thankful that this wasn't one of Persephone's 6 months off the isle. This was news he had to show in person. In the kitchen! Persephone called back to him. Hades grinned and rushed to the kitchen, where his wife was elbow deep in suds and dishes. Decided to do a deep clean? Hades asked, chuckling at the sight. If your minions knew how to clean a god's-forsaken dish, we wouldn't have run out of spoons this morning. Persephone grumbled, brushing a bit of hair out of her eyes and leaving a small trail of suds on her cheek. Hades, though, continued to grin, his wife's bad mood failing to dampen his good one. What's going on? Persephone asked, noticing the grin on her husband's face. Hades didn't answer, but instead closed the distance and enveloped Persephone in a hug. Spinning her around, Hades had to laugh as Persephone let out a surprised shriek. Hades! Persephone exclaimed. What's happened? Wait, did Maleficent die? Is that what's got you in such a good mood? Hades shook his head and spun Persephone around so that she faced him. No, the dragon's still alive, but my good mood is in relation to her. As odd as it is to say. In fact, you could say my good mood is a relation of Maleficent's. Mal! Persephone gasped, catching on. You saw her! Outside of the ember, I mean. I didn't just see her, Steph. I talked to her, Hades said, leaning against the island. Granted, it was like a minute-long conversation before she ran off, but it still happened. And she came by the restaurant. What? Persephone exclaimed, her eyes lighting up with delight. Oh, Hades, why didn't you say something sooner? Did you bring her back with you? Hades shook his head, his good mood slightly diminishing as he thought of Mal having to continue to live with Maleficent. It was too soon, Steph. It was one thing to pretend I stole Maleficent's baby after she was born, but Mal's old enough now to fight back. If she didn't want to go and I grabbed her, I might have ended up hurting her. Persephone sighed. When you say it like that, it does make sense. As well, Maleficent's already stolen Mal from us here. It would be all too easy for her to do it again. Or worse, Mal is registered as her daughter. She could file a report to Auradon against you if you stole Mal again.
That registry is completely ridiculous. Hades grumbled. There haven't been any inspectors in here for the past 2 years, and clearly no one cares about the status of the aisle if the food deliveries are any indication.
I know, Stephanie said, resting a hand on Hades' cheek. Sighing, she decided to change the topic. How did Mal look?
Hades smiled. She looks good. Small for her age compared to the other brats that run amok throughout the aisle, but that could be her Fey heritage coming out.
Lack of food, too, Persephone added. Maleficent might be the first to get choice on the deliveries, but that doesn't mean she'll give Mal more than what is needed.
Hades nodded. I gave her an extra piece of fish when she came by the restaurant. She noticed the sign that said there was supposed to be 2 pieces. When I told her I fried up 3.
What did you say? Persephone asked, turning back to finish the dishes.
Told her the sign was wrong.
And her response?
Told me to change the sign,
Hades said as he hopped to sit on the counter of the aisle.
I told her I'd get right on it.
Persephone couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. Oh, gods, Hades. I wish I could have been there.
Maleficent's letting Mal walk around the aisle by herself now, Hades said. It's a start at least. I can do more for her. Making sure she's getting food for starters.
And you thought the restaurant was a bad idea, Persephone teased, going back to the dishes.
Hey, you were right, Hades said, grinning. I won't complain about that place again, even if I do have to act more with Hook because of it.
I thought Hook was one of the few villains you could tolerate.
He is, Hades nodded. But some in his crew spend their time around Frollo when it's starting to show. If that sorry excuse for a mortal tries to tell me I'm living in a delusion and that there's only one god, one more time, he's going to find that hat of his in a very interesting place.
Persephone sighed and grabbed a towel, tossing it to Hades. As long as you don't do it in front of Mal, I won't say anything. Hades caught the towel and smirked.
Is this your way of saying I washed you dry?
No, of course not.
Steph.
Persephone sighed. I figured you wouldn't want to make dinner on top of doing the cooking at the restaurant. If you can dry, I'll handle dinner. Hades nodded and hopped off the counter to get started on drying the dishes. As Persephone walked away, Hades grabbed her by the waist and pulled her into an embrace. Kissing her gently on the lips, Hades whispered,
She's okay. No matter what happens next, we know Mal's okay.
The next step is bringing her home, Persephone reminded him, her head resting on his chest.
It'll be slow going, Hades told her. She's already so distrustful of others. She looked like I was lying right to her face when I told her there was no charge for the food.
Well, then, you've got to make her trust you, Persephone said with a smirk that made Hades' heart race. That shouldn't be a problem for you. After all, there's no way you'd be able to make deals with people if they didn't trust you.
Those people weren't raised by Maleficent, if you can even call what she's doing to Mal raising.
Didn't you tell me that the challenge was the fun part?
That's with mortals, not my daughter.
Persephone rested a gentle hand on Hades' cheek, looking back up at her husband. Hades, if there's anyone who can do it, it's you. Breaking from the embrace, Persephone said, For right now, though, focus on drying up those dishes. I'll see if I can scare us up something for dinner.
Yes, dear. Hades chuckled and grabbing the towel off the counter. You know, though, scaring things is more my area.
Well then, scare those dishes dry, Persephone said as she walked out of the kitchen. Hades chuckled and shook his head. Nothing could ruin his good mood right now. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Oh, I like that chapter. I like it a lot. I just love how domestic Hades and Persephone are. Of course, they're the most popular Greek couple in pop culture right now, which is, I think, rightly earned. It's just so cool. And the fact that they're so worried about her even 5 years later, and cute little Mal, and oh, again, I want to give her a cuddle. Poor thing's only 5. But anyway, what can you do? Have a good day, night, wherever time zone you're in. Check out my other videos, like, comment, and subscribe, yada, yada, yada. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!